If you joined us at the top of the hour, you know I'm joined here today by Pete Greco. Pete is our VP of Sales and Technology and has been in the tech business ever since CAD was cool. So I'm thinking, early 80s, maybe mid to late 80s. Anyway, he's been in the business a long time. He's been in infrastructure tech and security tech. He's built the infrastructure, and he's worked with thousands of your peers on, building, scoping, implementing all sorts of security technology. So he's going to hop on the microphone today and talk a little bit about Sophos and then ultimately show us a demo. So let's give a loud virtual round of applause for Mr. Pete Greco. Pete, good morning.
Hello. Thanks, everybody, for hopping on with us today, and thank you for putting me up to the technical challenge. I'll make it easy on you. Throw any trigonometry question at me. Definitely you'll have me stumped for sure. But when it comes to the Sophos Cloud product, I'll definitely tell you some good stuff here. So, let's talk a little bit about about what is cloud. It's more than one definition here, right? And what Sophos is really trying to achieve, as you see on the graphic, the ability to admin and control anywhere, right? So some of the crazy challenges that we're all faced with today is such a diverse workforce, and the workforce having lots of diverse technology, right? Look at a guy like myself. I'm in the office a lot, but I work a lot from home. I have an iPhone. I have an Android tablet. I have a couple of laptops. I have an iPad, right? And every single one of these devices is connecting to the corporate environment. And so how do we get even a base level of control, let alone a thorough level of control over this thing, right? And so when we're not always on the network, you're going to the cloud to be able to see devices basically anywhere and be able to control and drive those devices from anywhere, right? A lot of our customers are talking about multiple offices, and that's not new, right? We've got an office here, we've got an office in California, we've got one in New York. That's not brand new, and there's a lot of technologies in place, right, to develop that one single network with multiple locations. But now we've got folks that are on airplanes all the time, they're in hotels all the time, people who work from home 100% of the time, right? And so getting on top of those folks is the new horizon or the new frontier. Todd, let's take a look at that next slide. Ooh. Why cloud endpoint? Right? The ability to manage and control anywhere. Some of the new technologies that Sophos is working on is going to be the ability for all of the devices to communicate with each other. So if one device detects a threat, it can identify what kind of traffic is being sent through their UTM. They can figure out, hey, this is legit or not legit, and then instantly update all of the devices, no matter where they're at, so on network, off network, with the latest behavioral threats rather than relying on signatures, which probably aren't going away, but you're also getting behavior patterns that can be shared amongst all your machines to keep that protection as up-to-date as humanly possible. The nice thing about the Sophos Cloud product is merging in both MDM and endpoint security. We're also seeing a ton of Macs coming into environments. And, historically a lot of guys resisted it, partially because of cost, partially because they were hard to support, and Macs are becoming a lot more business friendly, and a lot of users are insisting on using that as their endpoint. And so now it's creating an additional challenge for IT to be able to manage and secure those, right? And so now we can do that stuff from basically one console, as well as be able to control Android or iOS devices, which a lot of folks are starting to shift their mobile workforces into an iPad only. So we're seeing some of those folks now don't have a traditional machine that they take on the road with them. They're strictly using some kind of tablet device for doing presentations, doing their typical work. We're seeing a lot of things like Salesforce and Sales Logic's coming out with tablet versions so that users don't have to be at a traditional machine. How do you get control over that? What happens if it gets lost? How do you enforce the password? We're going to give you a look at some of that stuff right now. One of the other big benefits that folks are going to get out of the Sophos Cloud product is user-based licensing. And so you get a guy like me who's got just a plethora of different devices. You're talking about one license for me that protects all of my devices. That helps you stay on top of being able to manage everything that you need to manage and have it make fiscal sense for you, right? Now, go back to why in the cloud, and we're able to get reports on a guy like me who's all over the place, in the office a lot, at home a lot, always on my tablet, always on my iPad, using my iPhone a lot. Sometimes I'm looking at my tablet and my laptop together, right? So let's be on top of that stuff. And let's make sure that we're keeping everything up to date and finding out when things aren't up to date. That's when you start really identifying security weaknesses, is you've got that one machine that's not updating and you don't know because it hasn't been on the network in a month or 6 weeks or whatever, and now as soon as they show up completely infected and you're finding out that they're out of date as they're joining the network completely infected. That's the kind of stuff we want to be able to stop it as it's happening and be able to take instant action. Okay? So, yeah, so the Sophos product built off of the traditional technology. That was really the last bullet on the side. Sophos, very well known for being a leader in endpoint protection and in the UTM space, and they're bringing that same technology to the cloud here. So we'll give you a great look at this. Feel free to throw those questions at me. This is a super easy product to try and get acclimated to. One of my favorite things about it is the ease of MDM provisioning for the end user. And we tried this out with a couple of our brand new guys to see how it worked for them, and really didn't do anything other than send them the welcome email, and they were able to get their mobile devices provisioned pretty easily. And so to me, that was pretty telling on the ease of use. So Todd, are you looking at my screen here?
I absolutely am. Hey, Pete, what is the formula for a tangent?
I'm going to have to give you a real solid I don't know. I am 100% positive that I do not know the answer to that.
For all our trig fans out there, they would know that it's side opposite over side adjacent. Yeah.
Todd, in college, my math was just called math.
Fair enough.
All right. Let's get this bad boy going. So we're on the main dashboard. All I've done is log in. Right, I keep a little list of my logins here so I can hop into these things pretty easily. I haven't been using this product forever. We've been using some of the traditional on-prem stuff, and I threw this out managing my son's computer at home just to kind of see how this was going to work. And one of the things that I really liked instantly was being able to pull up this console from anywhere without having to establish a VPN. Back to the network and do a remote desktop and this kind of stuff, and start getting some visibility onto what's going on. Now you can see I'm actually pretty clean here. I don't have any alerts. I've got my big green check mark, so I'm staying on top of stuff. I've got a user summary over here that's giving me some information on what I've got that's active and not active, and I've got some different choices that I can look at just by clicking this. This will rotate automatically, but I can hop to a report that I want to see, and I can go to a more thorough report by clicking on this, and I can start drilling down and getting into some additional information. And I've spent quite a bit of time playing around with this, and one of the things that I really dig is the ability to click around and get to different places. So I see that I've got an issue, or I see that I've just got a machine that maybe I don't know what's going on with it or whatever, or I want to see what a user's been up to. I can click around in a couple of different ways. So I can check out Carlo here, I can see his, we have a rock and roll theme. For those of you who are new to our web events, you know, we've got a rock and roll theme for our network naming convention. For the folks that have been on before, very familiar with our style over here. So I can see Carlo's desktop, and then I can see his phone, and I can click into these devices, or I can click into Carlo and see what's going on with him and what's going on with his devices and this kind of stuff. So I get a lot of information here that can help me stay up to date with what's going on. Now, if Carlo called me up and said he lost his phone, I can just start drilling down into his phone, and maybe I'm going to wipe that thing. I'm going to force it to check in. I'm going to lock it automatically. Or if Carlo left the organization, I could simply delete his phone, and then my email and my Wi-Fi access is going to be pulled away from that thing. So to get started, what I did, let me see if I can find my app here. We have an Active Directory structure, so we took advantage of the AD Sync tool. And you just install this on your administrative workstation or laptop, and then you can sync up your AD so you've got all your users. Now, if you're a real small environment or you didn't have a directory structure, you'd be able to enter those users or import a CSV or something like that. But obviously, if you got an AD structure, you want to take advantage of the automation here. Now, we don't change our AD too much, so I've got this set to sync automatically monthly, but we can change this to more frequently or less frequently or run on demand or whatever we wanted to do here. And you can see this doesn't take too long at all to get updated. Usually this runs behind the scenes. I don't ever have this open, or I don't ever look at it in my normal course of operations here. Okay? So once we got our users in, there we go. Once we got our users in, now I can start doing a couple of things. And the thing that I always like to do is I like to start by creating policies that I'm going to put users into. And you're going to start with this default policy here. Now, different from some of the other traditional on-prem products, I'm able to have a policy that controls web content filtering, my endpoint security, and my mobile device management. Now, I'm still a little bit old school, so I originally set this up where MDM was a separate policy from the endpoint security, but I don't need to do it that way. I can create a policy that is tied to a user, and here's his mobile policy, here's his web control policy, and here's his endpoint security policy. Or I can have different policies for these things, and I can put users with a straight MDM policy and then give them an endpoint policy as well. You're always going to start with this base policy. This is basically the hierarchical, not sure if I can get that word out.
Hierarchical.
There you go. Thank you. Structure where this will be my base policy that all the other policies are based off of. And that's how it's set up by default. So anything that I set in here is going to be mandated in these other policies, right? And so, again, I don't have to have it set up that way, but that's the way it's set by default. I could disable this if I wanted to, so that it, in fact, I did disable it, so that it's so that each policy is completely standalone. So it gives you quite a bit of capabilities there. You can see I've got a couple different policies, including workstation family, and I'm just going to drill into that. So I'm going to highlight it, and then I'm going to go edit. And I can clone any of these policies. I can add a brand new one from scratch, whatever I want to do here. And come on, baby, there we go. And so obviously I can name this anything that I want. Here's the protections that I'm going to enable, or that I have enabled. So base anti-malware protection right here. Here I've got some device access control protection here. Here I've got my web content filtering. And here I've got my control for mobile devices, which you can see I don't have on. If I check that on, then it's going to add an additional category down here that I can configure and add. So I'm just going to do next. And you can see this is my son, Dominic, and this is the laptop that he has at home. We both have user accounts for. And so I'm protecting his machine. His machine's never once been at Productive Corporation, never once been joined to the domain, right? And so I'm able to control it here just like all my other corporate corporate workstations. And I'm not necessarily advocating that you should be administering your friends and family from here, but it showcases the capability to do so, and I can add more users in here if I want to. And then I'll just go next. Here's my real-time scanning. If I want to do a deep scan, right, I can set that up. If you're not exempting anything, you might not need to do a scheduled scan ever again, right? But we've exempted a few of the processes that we use all the time to make sure that we're getting the ultimate performance out of our machines. And so that's where I do like to come in and do a deep scan. I can also trigger a manual scan from here, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But here's where I'd be able to plug in those exemptions. So maybe I want to exempt Outlook.exe or Word.exe. Still want to scan the Word documents, just not Word itself. And I'm just going to keep nexting through the wizard here to set up these rules. So I've got my peripherals on monitor but do not block, so I can't really do anything here except report on what they're using. But if I check this off now, these come alive, and now I can choose if I want to allow or deny. So I'm not going to allow Bluetooth to work. Secure removable storage, we're going to do read-only. Don't have a floppy on that box, but if I did, maybe I want to block it. Infrared I want to block. And I can start doing some stuff here to figure out how to make this box more secure, right, and give me some additional capabilities to make sure data isn't leaving this device or getting introduced to this device that I don't know about. One of my favorite settings, and I think Sophos does a pretty good job at this on the wireless, is block bridged. So we don't want to necessarily turn off Wi-Fi on folks that are mobile, because they're probably exclusively getting their internet access via Wi-Fi, but I can stop any devices from piggybacking on top of their Wi-Fi connection, right? So if they're sitting at the Starbucks, someone's not using us as a conduit to be able to hack somebody else, or being able to use our Wi-Fi to hack us directly, right? So we might set that up. While I'm getting familiar with this, I might want to have it set up in the monitor but do not block, so that I can see what kinds of devices are getting connected, and then I can whitelist them. So if I'm going to say we're not going to allow secure removable storage, maybe I want to make sure that I'm whitelisting the thumb drives that I'm handing out, right? Or I want to be able to whitelist my specific thumb drive, so if I'm running some kind of fix-it utility or something like that, it can still connect, okay? And we'll just keep going. So now we're in the mobile policy section, which I enabled. So what I'm going to do with mobile device preferences, I'm going to insist on a password. So I want to make sure that someone can't just pick up an employee's phone and start sending emails on their behalf, right? So we're going to password protect that. I can disable and hide features. Now this is something that I'm probably only going to do if I own the phones. And so if I don't, and again, I can have multiple policies here. So maybe I've got some corporate-owned phones for some of the folks that are road warriors, and then everybody else has their own personal phone, and I might want to treat those a little bit differently. So I got a bunch of different things that I can do here. You can see you got a bunch of different options on setting that password or that PIN, so you can make it as secure or as easy as you want it to be. Maximum number of login attempts before we do a wipe, maximum number of password age before we force them to reset it. All kinds of traditional stuff that guys are used to doing. We can still do all that stuff here. I can prevent screenshots. I can prevent access to the camera, to the App Store. And you can see here what it applies to. So you know iCloud isn't a policy for Android, right? So you're not going to make any mistakes about thinking what you've got locked down or what you don't have locked down. Here's where I can push out my email settings. Here's where I can push out my Wi-Fi. And the thing that I really dig about this is now I don't ever have to give an end user a Wi-Fi password that he can then intentionally or accidentally share with someone who shouldn't have access to Wi-Fi. If I change the password, I can come in here and change it and update their phones automatically without having to ever give them the code. And so now I'm more free to keep that security the way that I want it to be on our internal infrastructure. And then compliance rules. Don't want to allow jailbreaking devices if devices haven't checked in. What do I want to do? I can take them right off the network if they haven't checked in for a while. Now, maybe I do this and an employee calls me up and says, hey, I don't have my email, I don't have this, I don't have that. right, we can quickly re-enroll them. To get them set up, once I have my policy set up and I've added them to the group, I'm going to send them 2 emails. This is what's going to help them get set up their iPhone, iPad, Android device, whatever it is. They can start by doing a QR code. Or let me just minimize this other one so this is easy to see. They can start by, excuse me, taking a snapshot of this QR code, or if they don't have that, they can just follow the instructions here to get this started. So they can do this right off of their work machine or some other device to get their mobile device started. Any QR reader, of course, will work here. For the endpoint, I can do the same thing, but I'm going to send them an endpoint, a link to the endpoint code, which is going to allow them to download either the Windows or the Mac OS and deploy that endpoint agent on their machine. These agents are tied right back to my console, so once that agent is deployed either on a phone, a tablet, laptop, workstation, server, whatever it is, it automatically is connected. So if I actually sent this code to one of you all and had you deploy it on your machine, I would be controlling it from here without anybody having to do anything. So you want to make sure that you're only using the codes that are tied to your specific account. Give me just a sec here. There we go. Right, and then the last thing that we're able to do here is web control. And so this is talking about web content filtering. So we do web content filtering at the gateway here, but now we can have this policy follow employees no matter where they're at on the environment. And if you don't have the capability to do web content filtering at the gateway, this gives you a capability you haven't previously been able to have. So we've got that turned on. I've got additional security options checked on, acceptable web usage, protect against data loss, and if we come down here, that tells me all the stuff that I can do. So additional security options, advertisements, I might want to block that. Anything that's in categorized, so Sophos hasn't yet identified, is this a gambling site, is it an adult site, is it a business site, an education site? We can allow or block those. Risky file types, what do I want to do here? And here's what we're talking about, ActiveX, Adobe Flash, Adobe PDF. So a bunch of different things we can do here to get more control over what's going on. Right, and you basically just follow the wizard to get this set up. Categories likely to cause excessive bandwidth usage. What are we talking about here? Peer-to-peer, phone downloads, streaming media. Let's block that stuff so that we've got all of our bandwidth available for business usages. Web-based email, downloads, all kinds of good stuff. Go ahead, T.O.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when we get to the end, when you first saw this, were there like one or two things like, hey man, this is going to make my life a lot easier?
The very first thing, great question, first of all. The very first thing was really the mobile device management. This is probably the easiest way to get on top of mobile device management and provisioning of all the products on our line card and of all the products that we're familiar with and have seen. I just don't know how you could simplify it beyond what they've done here. And as we're talking to a lot of folks, I think the number one thing that we're hearing is that it really, MDM is, they get it, they understand why it could be important, but a lot of folks just simply don't want to take on the extra burden because they're already wearing so many hats right now. And this allows you to blend it right in with your endpoint protection, something that you're doing already. And a lot of our folks, don't own hundreds and hundreds of phones that they're giving to their employees. The bulk of folks that we work with, it's an employee-owned device, and I think a lot of our customers are also nervous about how am I going to control this. Yet at the same time, every employee wants to connect it to their email. Every employee wants to connect it to their corporate Wi-Fi so they're not burning up their data while they're in the office. And now you have a way to easily provision that. And I'm not as concerned about the provisioning of it, Todd, though again, can't be any easier than getting this QR code. I'm more concerned about what happens when an employee leaves his device on a table someplace. He's out with his buddies who mess with each other, right? Just to be blunt about it. I've played numerous practical jokes on my buddies, right? So I want to protect the device from them. I want to protect the device from being stolen. And when that employee leaves, I don't want to have to chase them down and make sure they don't have access to stuff. I want to pull it off instantly. Now, what we previously did is we just changed their password, and they wouldn't be able to get new emails, but they'd still have their email on their phone for 3 days or 5 days or whatever they set that for, and that gives them an opportunity to mine that data out of there. With this, we pull that stuff off instantly, and their phone goes back to being just their phone. So that was really the first thing that I saw that I really liked, and I feel is super important to maintain control over the environment. The next thing that I saw that I really dug, and I haven't seen this in any cloud-managed products, was the actual capability to do device control while managing it from the cloud. And device control isn't brand new, but if you look at any of the cloud competitors out there, all they're really doing is a base level AV and maybe an intrusion prevention. And so to have some of the additional features, and to me, the peripheral control is really the next bastion that is going to become the base level, right? A couple years ago, and Todd remembers this for sure, and I'm sure a lot of you guys remember, antivirus used to be just antivirus. There was no anti-spyware. You had to get a standalone product. There was a couple companies out there that had a centrally managed product, but it was totally different. Not everybody was doing it. That became the base level, and then intrusion prevention went from this $1,000 per server, $2,000 per server type investment to being built into your anti-malware. That's become the base level. I believe this is really the next thing to become just that base level of, well, we have to have this or we can't even consider it type deal, especially the ability to block out modems if you don't need modem access. You want to get control over those optical drives. If you have employees who they have no reason to be burning CDs or burning data to CDs, it's cheaper to get laptops with that gear sometimes. We shopped around buying some workstations without a DVD player. It's going to cost us $50 to $100 more to not have that option because that's how they're making them, right? So now we can control that stuff and get it locked down the way that we want. So those were really the first two big things that I really liked about the product and that was impressive to me. Okay? So once we're set up, we've got it deployed, right? We can go in and we can evaluate or investigate. Clicked on the wrong thing there. Click investigate our users. We can investigate devices. So again, I can go in here and check out Carlo. I can go in here and check out Pete Greco if you can find me any place, right, and see what I'm managing and controlling. Very easy to license because you're just counting up the users. Here's where I could manually add those users. As I bring more and more guys into the fold, I can resend a setup link or email them that link if they haven't gotten it before to get them rolling, right? And then the reports are pretty nice. I can hop in here and see a lot of stuff of what's going on, a bunch of different reports that I can run, so I can see events and I can drill into these. So web control, 43 events. Let's drill down and see what we got here. 40 of those are policy events. 3 of those were web threat events. Very interesting information. I can see some more information about what's going on here. We got our Mac on there now as of yesterday. So pretty integrated and pretty easy to see. I can export this information off if I'm really big into reports, right? I can export this off in a couple of different formats so that I can merge this in with maybe other environmental reports that I need to run or need to show to my boss or whatever. I also like this little slider here that allows me to customize my date range on when I want to see info. Just works out pretty slick. So a lot of this stuff is kind of cross-pollinated, so I can click from a report, go back to the data, click in the data, go straight to the report. I can click on a bunch of different kinds of threats and that kind of stuff and go out to Sophos' website and get more information on what's going on there. Just couldn't be really any simpler. Coming out this quarter, we're going to start seeing application control is in the next release. They're getting ready to release a special server version of the endpoint agent that's obviously geared for servers. How the policies work now is they're tied to the user. So Carlo and I are in 2 different groups. We have 2 different policies. If I go over and log on to Carlo's machine as me, I'm going to be applying the Pete Greco policy to that machine. With the servers, you don't necessarily want to change those policies based on the user, so you'll be able to create a policy that is tied to the server, not tied to who's logging in, and you'll be able to use that in a couple different ways as well. So a lot of good stuff coming out this quarter for this product.
Yeah, so awesome, Pete. That's fantastic stuff. We're 3 minutes past the half hour, so I want to tie this thing up. I know you could talk about Sophos Cloud all day, but it is great. It's very cool. You can hear the excitement in Pete's voice. It's a real deal. Before we go, 30-second pitch here. Software bundles we love, CCleaner. You've seen the free version. The network version is the licensed version for commercial, for all businesses. But the best thing about it, it's a great CCleaner with central administration. So you can push out clean and get all your devices cleaned up. Bundle that with Sophos Cloud Security. We got a great offer going, and we think are 2 great steps to giving you a secure and efficient and effective environment. So with that, I say thank you for coming. Your account exec will follow up. If you want to see a demo of the Sophos Cloud or try it, talk to them. They can help you out. Pete, fantastic presentation. You were able to answer all my questions except for the trig question, but since this was not a math lesson, I'm going to let that slide. I am Todd Obert from Productive. Alongside me, Pete Greco, wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.